we don't talk about many really complicated things on this show. Uh, that that's kind of our brand, but we always like to touch on certain phenomena that we all feel when it comes to movies and cinema. And one of them is something that I've been thinking about for a minute, especially since all this whole award season hubbub passed. And you talk about creatives, and the creative name of the moment is, well, Sean Baker, who took a lot of awards. And that kind of got me thinking about directors and filmmakers and names. And the phenomenon that I've been talking about is that whole phenomenon of you watch a movie because of the director, more so than because of the star of the picture or because of the genre of it. Irvin is here with me, and Irvin, I will ask you. This is a very common phenomenon that we've seen in movies. It's been happening for more than half of the time cinema has existed as a medium. Uh, you know, for you personally, what, if you can remember, what was the first time you went to the cinema to see a movie because of the director?
Wow, that's a really really good question. Um, I would have to say that I I think it was Michael Mann. I think after watching um, Heat and then The Insider, his latest film after that was Ali. And I remember that I was tracking his filmography in that, in that context. And when this movie was released, I wanted to see it. And believe it or not, I know that Will Smith was extremely popular around that time. Um, but I was more curious to see Michael Mann's next film instead of
Hmm.
just, watching just a film about Muhammad Ali with Will Smith, which are two big figures. For me, the curiosity was that, and the reason, and I don't know if this is part of some of the questions that you will ask, but the main reason is reliability. This
Hmm.
is a director who was coming pretty hot of two of my favorite films ever, and two films that have been aging like fine wine in
Right.
terms of like having a not a cult uh, follow, but I would say that had been it has garnered this amazing reputation of being two films that belongs to the same director that are pretty much like the standard in its genre, like both
Right.
films in journalism and also like in action or crime saga drama and all that. So yeah, it was Michael Mann. To long story short, I think that there's no other
Hmm.
director that I could think of immediately, because probably the other one that I had my eyes on was James Cameron, but James Cameron took only 12 years
Yeah.
to to release another film after Titanic.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that doesn't happen unless you become a little more entrenched in the world of cinema, because when you're a kid or when you're a teenager, you're just having fun. But then when you kind of become entrenched in enjoying cinema and deep diving in it, you kind of start doing that. For me, this is interesting because I came late to this.
Mhm.
Um, but I think the first movie that I saw, because it was the director's movie, and that's odd because I'm talking about the year 2012. I did see, and this is not the answer to my question, but before that, I did see The Dark Knight Rises in the cinema. But as of that moment, I was still not in that whole uh I was not up to snuff with Christopher Nolan as of yet. That movie made me a fan of Christopher Nolan. I did not see that movie because I thought, well, this is the newest Christopher Nolan movie. It was the follow-up to The Dark Knight. I wasn't really up to snuff with any of that. I was still having fun, but that very same year, I saw this movie at the end of the year because of the director. Because at that point, I was already kind of a bit up to snuff with some of that director's most iconic work. I'm talking of Quentin Tarantino. That
I
same
knew it.
year, he
I knew it.
released, yeah,
That intro revealed it. I was like,
right,
this is Quentin.
right. I went to see Django Unchained. I think it was December 30th, 2012. I remember that because it was literally ending the year.
Hmm.
And I saw this movie because I had already seen for the first time that summer, or that summer, no, that year, 2012. I had seen for the first time Pulp Fiction. I had seen for the first time Reservoir Dogs. I'm
Wow.
trying to remember if I saw Kill Bill. I'm not completely sure. Oh, and I had seen Inglorious Bastards. I think it was for the second time, but it you could almost say it was the first time because sometimes the second time is the first time because you barely remember the first time. And I thought when I saw the trailers, it's gonna come out at late December. I thought, wow, Quentin Tarantino. I am going to see this movie because it's a Quentin Tarantino movie. I think that was the first one. And then everybody else followed, whether it was 2 years later with the next Nolan, which was Interstellar. I had had time to kind of get up to snuff with David Fincher, for example. And, 2 years after that, Gone Girl comes out. We don't even need to talk about that right now. But I think that was the first instance where I understood that whole phenomenon of going to the cinema not just to experience the art, but to experience the work of, dare I say, an artist. And I'm
Hmm.
sure that everybody has different stories about that. And you think of that phenomenon of name directors, people who go to the movies to see that director. There are some that have had it for so long that still do it. You think of Spielberg, for example, anytime he comes out with a new movie, everybody kind of has to see it nowadays, right? Spielberg
Hmm.
kind of still has that pool. Uh, you think Quentin still does, especially now when he takes longer to release new films. Uh, you think of other names like I don't know. I think I could say Fincher. I could say
Yeah.
Fincher has done
Fincher,
it.
Scorsese.
Of
Uh,
course, Scorsese.
yeah.
Uh,
These are directors that you honestly like. The cast is secondary,
right
because you are going to see a David Fincher film, a Martin Scorsese picture, a Steven Spielberg film. Just how the
Right,
marketing
right.
does it.
Now,
You just honestly go and watch it because of them, and it's just a plus that
now,
they decide to work with great actors.
I said earlier that this is something that has been a thing for more than half the time that cinema has been a medium in the world. Especially, well, I'm kind of speaking for our half of the world because obviously there's a whole other half of the world of cinema that isn't totally covered. So I have to recognize that. But I remember seeing this docu-series on CNN called The Movies, and I remember somebody said, I'm totally paraphrasing, but somebody said that Alfred Hitchcock was the first director that people went to the movies because it was an Alfred Hitchcock movie,
Mm.
regardless of what it was about. If he wasn't the first, he was probably the first prominent one to kind of rise up. And that kind of got me thinking, like, who, which working director today do kind of has that? I mean, there are some that definitely have it, because of
Really?
the name we mentioned Christopher Nolan. He's probably the first out of everybody's head, right?
Hmm.
Denis Villeneuve, he's definitely in that pantheon right now.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I think that everybody can just, probably like identify themselves with those directors specifically because they have directed big blockbuster films. But honestly, I will tell you this. The first name that came to mind once you were just talking about it, is Ari Aster.
really,
That's,
you think
that's a
he
name.
you
Yeah,
think you think you
absolutely.
think you think he has that pull right now?
He does. Otherwise, I don't think that it's his movies uh, would not have garnered so
Hmm,
much attention,
hmm,
and not only for cinephiles, but I think that somewhere down the line, almost everybody has been exposed to either Hereditary,
hmm,
Midsommar, whether it has been through a conversation,
hmm,
whether it's because they went to see it or somebody was talking about it, but
hmm,
they know about these films. And maybe Bo
hmm.
is afraid it probably will be like, low tier Ari Aster. But right now, with the movie that it's coming up, later this year, that has Joaquin Phoenix, Austin Butler, Emma Stone, Pedro
Right.
Pascal, it's called Eddington. You get to think like, okay, this is gonna be another Ari Aster film that will get that attention, whether
Right.
people like it or not.
That's a
And
that's a
and
good one.
so I think that it comes to mind because I think that he's just getting started. And because
Okay.
he's just getting started, the other one that I can think of is Jordan Peele. So those are
I
two names
think
that
I,
come to mind.
you really you kind of took the words out of my mouth. I was just saying that in current times, and let's call it within the past decade, directors who have come up within the past decade, I think Jordan Peele is leading that pack.
Yeah.
He's the guy that he makes a movie and everybody's highly anticipating his next movie. Nobody knows what the hell it's about, and
Yeah.
nobody cares because he's gone 3 for 3, and I don't think there's any reason why that's going to change. But Jordan Peele is the absolute name, at least within the last decade of cinematic work, who is kind of leading that pack. And I think there are other names who are up
Yeah.
there. I think Greta Gerwig is one that's doing
Hmm.
that. Like
Yeah. Mhm.
even when she was going to release Lady Bird, I remember there was a lot of anticipation for that because she's done work as an actor, as a writer, and she debuted it and debuted it great. And then her Little Women adaptation was great. And we
Hmm.
need not even and then Barbie was the zeitgeist. That's the one
Yeah.
that made her into a more massive appeal figure, not just for cinephiles, but for everybody. And now you're asking, when is her next movie? Because
Mm.
that's I think Greta Gerwig is doing that, and we start thinking about some of the. I mentioned the name Sean Baker earlier. Do you think he's approaching that level?
No, I don't think so. And because it's a different it's a different kind of like reliability. Like when you
I
see,
agree.
and from now on, when you see a Sean Baker film, first of all, he has been a pioneer in promoting, advocating for independent filmmaking.
Right,
Therefore, that's what you're gonna see. Greta,
right.
right now, she hit a grand slam with Barbie because this is a property that people are familiar with, but at the same time, the cast, the marketing, everything that came with Oppenheimer as well. So she got herself in a position where now she can choose whatever she wants to do. If she wants to scale back or she wants to continue doing blockbuster. I heard that her next film is because of Netflix contract. She's going to do Narnia. So you see where she's going right now, and I think that Sean Baker is not going to go through that route. I think
Yeah,
that he's
yeah.
going to
He's
stay
and he's
in
been
his own
he's been
bubble, which I love.
very vocal and very clear about that. He actually said
Yeah.
on one of his speeches, which may cause a little stir. He said something about, he's not doing this to get a bigger payday or a bigger whatever. I'm paraphrasing. And
Hmm.
I think that's admirable. I also think it's admirable to do the thing that he's not doing. If you're a filmmaker that's going to get a bigger platform, a bigger payday, all power to you, right? You think of Chloe Zhao, for example, who won
Hmm.
all the awards for Nomadland and immediately was given a bigger budget movie when she did the Marvel film.
Hmm.
Um, that's just one example of many. But I think your observation is spot on, and I think somebody like Greta Gerwig is somebody. Uh, and then, then it's the personal thing. Who, like, for everybody has that personal thing where I'm going to watch a movie by this director no matter what because I like their style. For
Yeah.
me, this is I'm new to this, but uh, Coralie Farja.
Mm.
Anything she makes from here on out, I'm going to tune in. I don't care. And that goes with so many directors. Sean Baker, even before all the awards with Honor, and I remember you saying when you saw it before all of us did that you said I was going to like it because, and I'm quoting you, because I like Sean Baker's movie making, which is
Mhm.
accurate.
No, it's incredible, and I think that the great thing about Baker and the success of Honora is that independent filmmaking or cinema, it's getting a little bit more traction more than usual. I can give you an
Mm,
example based on my own experience. I have coworkers who immediately ask me, have you seen this movie that is getting a lot of attention? Which movie? Honora. Yes, of course I've seen it. Do you recommend it? And I always make the disclaimer that this is, not a blockbuster film. This is not a Cinderella story. This is not, a typical you know movie that you get to see probably every year or I
mhm.
don't know, like every 3 months or in the summer. This is a very particular film, very you know s- you know I would say like crafted based on the strengths of Sean Baker, who is a storyteller, but is a
Right.
storyteller using the medium in a different way. So
Mm.
without me getting explaining too much, I always said, this is a very particular film, and it's a very particular, take on this type of, story, and it's specifically about this, this background or whatever you want to call it. And they ended up liking it, and because of that, I'm, saying that he has now gotten to a point probably where he will carefully choose his next project. He probably is writing something, and whenever he release it, you'll see that people will say, "Oh, oh yeah, this is from the director of Honora." And
There's gonna be more interest than probably than
but
what
the
he would normally get,
expectation,
but
but
yeah.
but the expectation will be that they will see something that probably will be profound, that probably
Mm,
will have a very specific style in terms of how he's going to tell the story, because that is Sean Baker. And those who were introduced for the first time to Sean Baker film, Nora, now I had those same coworkers saying like, what else has he directed? Where can I get
right.
his film?
Yeah.
And this is what happens when this type of film and specifically director have the success that they had, or that he had. So I will say that based on what we were talking, and I didn't want to forget about Jordan Peele, I will say that there is a very particular trait on Jordan Peele's films. And besides that, it's the reliability part of it. I think it's that he, even though touches on very specific topics and themes,
Hmm.
um, and social themes, right?
Yes.
He utilizes a very universal language to tell these stories,
Mhm.
whether it's pure horror, whether it's like, this science fiction component, or you're utilizing probably an amazing setting to get the attention of anybody.
Even something as simple as a point in a relationship where you're going to meet the parents.
Yeah. So you do have now the expectation of that you're going to see something that probably you have not seen before or that you have rarely seen because he has this incredible style. But that's now his branding. The
Yes.
branding of Jordan Peele is that you are going to see something unique, whether you have seen things, similar, but not quite the way that he delivered or does it. And I think that, case in point, Nope. We have seen films about aliens. We have seen spaceships. We have seen people who get tormented by, the appearance of what could potentially be an alien. But we've never seen something that blended those things with the social themes that he utilizes, versus like the Hollywood, approach on, black cinema, but also like, this people who own horses that are that are utilizing Hollywood.
Right.
It's insane how incredibly he picks up these things and he plays them in a film and people can identify with it. And you're just like, oh my God, this is incredible. And we can, I think that, we can keep talking about his film, which is a
Right.
good, segue. Maybe we should talk about Jordan Peele a little bit more often.
We
Because I
should.
know that Jose Omar will talk about him, and I know that Joel will love to talk about him. But I think it's
Absolutely.
that. I think he carries now that, that badge, that branding, and I'm glad that he's taking his time to
Right.
create something special and something unique. And even if
And
we
that
gotta
only
wait,
that
we
only
will
helps him. That only helps him because there's
absolutely.
anticipation. That's the beauty of that, that's the beauty of following an art or an artist where you're waiting anxiously for their next work. In this 2025, we got a new film from Bong Joon-ho, which would
Yes.
be his follow-up to his Best Picture winning Parasite. And that's
Mhm.
one of the things that got me thinking about this as a topic because, you know, I saw a lot of lists when the year began, the most anticipated movie, and usually Mickey 17, the adaptation directed by Bong Joon-ho, was the number one most anticipated movie on a lot of lists. And
Yeah.
Bong Joon-ho, I think, is an example of that sort of uh, pull, that sort of attraction for people. I don't care
Mhm.
what Bong Joon-ho's next movie is, I'm going to watch it. So, and I think that phenomenon is it, I don't know if it was lost or whatever during the 2010s because the habits of movie going have changed and there's a lot of the IPs and the sequels and the superhero movies and all that stuff, which I always say with the disclaimer that I did enjoy those things. I watched pretty much all the Marvels of the 2010s in theaters, most of them, and it did kind of change some of those movie going ways. So that's why I kind of wanted to raise the topic because it's important to point out who has those who has that attraction. Now, thinking about moving forward, like, which filmmakers do you think are like that one movie away from having that? Like, I think of somebody, for example, I think if he doesn't have it already, I think he's like right on that doorstep. I think Robert Eggers is somebody
Yeah.
who's Nosferatu. A lot of people saw that movie, Irvin. A lot of people saw
Nosferatu,
that
of
movie.
course.
A
Yeah,
lot of people
absolutely.
saw that movie, and his next film, which is supposedly it's called Werewolf,
Werewolf.
literally. So he's going to give his take on that. And I'm sure that people are already anticipating it. So I think he's one that's kind of bubbling up to that. I, I think I think that's he's somebody who has that. I think
Yeah,
of
it came to
somebody.
mind.
I think I mentioned her earlier, but I think after the success of The Substance, I think Coralie Farja is going to start having that with people. I
Mm,
think there's a huge segment of people who enjoy movies who are waiting to see when her next work is. And I think that who do you think? Which other people would you care to mention?
yeah, I had in mind Robert Eggers. I will say that we briefly spoke about Barry Astor, but also I think about Ryan Coogler, which even
Right.
though Ryan Coogler had the success of the Black Panther films and also, directing Creed, I
Hmm.
think he's one film shy away from getting that reputation where people are just going to see a Ryan Coogler film and not a film starring Michael B. Jordan, for example, which is Sinners. And
Right.
I think that that's the big take on it. I can think also um, the Daniels. If the Daniels
Right.
produce another film that it is popular, that also people can identify and make a good amount of money, the same that Everything Everywhere All at Once did, then I think that they can get to that point where they're considered visionary directors and
I
who
think they
are
already
creating
are, though.
something.
I think they
I
already are.
I
I think they're there.
I
I
don't
think
think so. I don't think so because first of all, they have not announced anything that they are going to release. And I'm hoping that people can remember Everything Everywhere All at Once, once they release their new film or they announce their new film, because I think that the movie itself was so successful, but we're talking about the directors here. We're talking
mhm.
about, like, am I going to see this director's film, or does it need to have another, another another interesting, or I would say attraction within the film?
I think they are like in that sort of happy medium of that where
Yeah,
they
I agree.
they had all the success with Everything Everywhere All at Once, and now we're all kind of waiting to see what they're going to do next. And good for them for taking their time because they've
Hmm.
earned it. And good art is worth waiting for. And then whenever they announce what their next thing is, their next movie, their next feature motion picture is, there will be interest as a follow. And that, Irvin, that is another good topic for another episode where how do you follow up a best picture Oscar win? And that's something
Hmm.
that we're seeing Bong Joon-ho doing for this 2025. We're going to see Christopher Nolan attempt to do that, and it's quite an interesting study. So coming off the heels of Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's going to be some interest. If and I'm not talking awards here, I'm talking style, appeal, and obviously whatever story they come up with. If it duplicates in a style sense whatever they did with Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it's good, I think they're going to be there. So I think they're like in that happy
Absolutely.
medium. I think that was
Absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah, I
uh,
agree 100%. I think they're one film shy away from getting to that very elite group of those directors who are not going to replace the ones that we have already been following
right.
for so long, but they are going to have their own small group of directors who they're exciting to see what they're going to come up with and all of that, and among other directors, obviously. that we were just talking about. I don't know necessarily if this director will fit into that category because it's so niche his film choices. But I think Jonathan Glazer also has
Mm.
that film a way to make this incredible impact that will raise a lot of attention and
I
curiosity
think
to revisit this.
I think it's tough because of you use the word niche. I think that's the perfect
Mhm.
way to describe him. And also, he is not somebody who is constantly putting out movies all the time.
Yeah, that is
He
correct.
like he his first feature film came in the year 2000, and
Mhm.
The Zone of Interest is merely his fourth film.
Yeah.
and that and that movie came out for the 2023 awards season, if you will. So this is not somebody who's going to churn out a lot of work. I think it'll be the 2030s before we see another Glazer.
Yeah. I mean,
um,
definitely,
now,
I agree, but he can
a,
get there if his next film
right,
is as good as The Zone of Interest.
now a director that I want to mention because this director has a movie coming out at some point 2025, and there's interest because this is a director who wrote their own very great debut movie, and now getting a chance with a better cast and all that. 2023, Celine Song
Lin
and
Song.
Past Lives, one of the
Hmm.
best movies, not just of that year, but one of the best movies of the decade. And now
Hmm.
there is anticipation for the follow up to that, The Materialists, with that very good cast there.
Hmm.
So I think Celine Song is a filmmaker who could bubble up to that point if The Materialist is successful, and maybe another effort after that. I think is somebody who we could see, at least for me. I already
Hmm.
have that in my mind, but Celine Song is releasing another movie. I'm going, at least for
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And she was on my list. She was the third name after Robert Eggers, Ari Aster, and the Daniels, the fourth name.
Yeah.
I had her there. You know, it's incredible because I was lucky enough to be in the same room when she was talking about past lives. In this was in the summer of 2023 at a screening of Past Lives,
Good
and you
flex.
know, and honestly, I said I got lucky. I think that it was so surprising for me to hear that this was her first feature film. Her film debut. I thought that she had worked before or directed films that I had never heard of or something like that, but no, because you know we don't need to necessarily continue championing past lives here. We know how
Hmm.
special is that film, but it was very impressive. Like it's one of the best film debuts that I've seen, film directors debut that I have probably seen in my whole life.
Hmm.
You know, the impression that that movie caused in me and still has in me, it's very, impactful in so many different ways, but it's also like coming from, a director who this is her debut. It's
Yeah.
insane. And I think of the same standard when I hear of Robert Eggers, because I have The Witch um on a pedestal.
Hmm.
On a pedestal. I don't have to add anything else. Those very two different films, but I would say that those filmmakers have a special aura or touch or I don't know with them that I
Yeah.
think that they can create what we call in a very cheesy way, they can create magic.
And to finish out this, one other name or names I have on my list. People are anticipating their next filmmaking work, but well, now they're separate. But the Safdie brothers, a lot of people
Mm,
are waiting now. They're each going to release a new movie in the near future. So the work they've done over at least the last, particularly with Uncut Gems, which was was the quite the firecracker at the time it came out. Everybody was watching, and a lot of people have. I've seen a lot of people and talked to a lot of people anticipating what their next work is going to be. Good for them for taking their time. And Benny
Yeah.
Safdie has done a lot of acting too.
But
Uh,
he's directing. They're both directing separately, so they're not
right,
gonna have a new
right.
movie
But
together, at least for the near future. So I'm very curious to see, how they do individually. Hopefully, they're gonna do a great job because at least Benny has been working with great directors.
hmm
Therefore, I think that he has been absorbing that. So maybe
yes.
he's gonna continue, you know, uh, probably
Now
providing great pro.
that's kind of the worry you have, right? Because you think of the Coen brothers who are now directing separately, and you can clearly tell who is the serious one and who is the funny one.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. But yeah, I'm very curious also to see the Smashing Machine with Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt, directed by Benny
right.
Safdie. Very, very curious because I think that a director, among a lot of different traits that they have, a director also is a great director when they make average actors look good or look great in films. And I am very curious to see if the material of this movie coming from Benny Safdie pulls the very best out of Dwayne Johnson. So
And
we'll
credit
see.
to credit to Dwayne Johnson for being open to wanting to do more work like that.
Yeah, I'm very
So
happy that he's getting himself out of the comfort zone and pushing himself. But also, we gotta see it.
yeah, we gotta see it. We
We
gotta see
gotta
it.
see it. Gotta see it.
And
But I'm
whenever
excited.
it
I'm
comes
excited
out,
for it.
for whenever it comes out, we will. So that will be it for this. But first, let's do a final shot.
Hulk! Forget it! How dare you!
So
Ah,
Irvin, give me your final shot.
final shot. It's always going to be related to the Oscars. So
Right?
shame on the Oscars for not nominating Sing Sing for Best Picture. I think that you'll hear this final shot more than one time.
You're going to, but even if we remind you that you already said that.
Ah, I will say it again by two.
All right, all right, all right. So my final shot is going to the movies alone is so much better than people say it is. I think a lot of people will agree with me, but I still hear some people saying like, "Oh, I could never go to the movies alone. What kind of a loser goes to the movies alone?" Going to the movies, period, is great, whether it's with people or alone, but going alone just hits different.
I co-sign everything you said. I have experienced that before. I have been in movies actually. Only have this anecdote, and it is that um, I saw by myself one of my favorite movies ever. And one of the many reasons I love this movie, it was because of that first time that I saw it by myself in a movie theater, and I'm talking about La La Land. So
Oh,
I can't tell you how much I was immersed in that movie. And one of the many reasons because I was so it was so infectious, the reaction of the audience of every single musical number or everything that was happening, that I was not, if I would have been with somebody else, I probably would have been a little bit distracted, whether it was a friend or a significant other. I would have been a little bit more distracted, but because I was by myself, I was kind of absorbing everybody's reaction
hmm.
watching the movie, to the point that the second time I went to see it, I went with somebody else and I told them, I just want to see how the crowd reacts,
Mm-hmm.
because it was the first time was so impactful for me. Like I could not, you know, I will never forget it. I'll never forget it.
And
And the second time it was equally as fun, but not as impactful as the first time.
And I'll tell you what, I used to be one of those people who say, "Oh, I could never go to the movies alone. That's no fun." I started doing that well, near the start of the what 5 6 years ago. I started doing
Mm.
that, and I just noticed how it just hit different, and that's mostly how I go to the movies nowadays. I go to the movies alone most of the time, but it's just different, and it's a nice experience all on its own. So that is my final shot, and this is the end of this episode. So tune in next time, and we are